Welcome patrons! It's been a while since the last real lore video, so let's bring it all back with what seems to be one of the few reoccurring items in the whole series, the mysterious Eluvians. How it works. Early on in the series, we are told that Eluvians were used to communicate with people far away, like a magical version of Skype, and were made by the Tevinter Imperium. While part of that may have been true, their real purpose was transportation. The best way I could describe this is actually kind of Minecraft and Nether portals, although there are some differences. One Eluvian in the real world corresponds to another in what we call the Crossroads. Once you enter the Eluvian, you walk a distance to another Eluvian in the Crossroads and come back out into the real world much farther than where you started. Unlike in Minecraft though, it's unknown if the Eluvian placement in the Crossroads corresponds to where you will exit in the real world or vice versa. But as you can apparently change where an Eluvian leads, I do have my doubts about that. The Crossroads itself is also pretty much a mystery. From Morgan, she tells us that the place is not the Fade, but it is close, and it's possible that breaking down the barriers of the Crossroads might take you into the Fade. Further, she tells us that whatever the barriers are there are weakened. So from her description, it sounds like whatever the Crossroads are seem to be little bubbles of semi-reality hiding in the Fade, as the Fade itself is physically everywhere, just kept from expressing itself by the Veil, which is described as less a barrier and more a frequency that hides it. It's possible that the Crossroads are hidden with similar magic as the Veil. Like I said before, we do know it's possible to change where an Eluvian goes, although it would take a lot of magic to do so. This is proven possible from Morgan's son Kieran, if he has the soul of an old god, although we do not know if it was him or Flemeth who actually did the change. From the Masked Empire, it describes going through an Eluvian is like walking through a waterfall and that the surface is cool to the touch. The magic of the Eluvian has also changed color over the series. In the beginning, it was a purple color. Even the Masked Empire mentions that the Eluvians had this purple hue to it. But it wasn't until Dragon Age Inquisition that they became more multicolored and showed a bit of the place where you were going. We are also not sure if all Eluvians have to be connected to the Crossroads. As seen with Trespasser, when Eluvians would take you to different places in the same map, no crossroads seen at all. It may be that there are different kinds of Eluvians, those connected to the network, and those that act more like various doors in one building. Or it could be that the game designers just didn't want you walking around in the crossroads a whole bunch, so they cut that part out of the game. We don't really know. Design. So despite Eluvians looking mostly the same through the series, not all Eluvians are alike. There is a classical arch shape shown in Dragon Age Origins and Inquisition, and we see larger ones in Trespasser, perhaps made for heavy traffic or transporting larger items or beings. And in Dragon Age 2, there is Meryl's unique Eluvian. Her Eluvian is strange, as technically it is the same Eluvian with the classical design seen in the Dragon Age Origin Dalish opening. Now, as even Meryl herself got a makeover in between the games, it is possible that this was just a redesign. But in Dragon Age Inquisition's way in the back, when Morgan takes the Eluvian to talk about the Crossroads and whatnot, you actually see Meryl's mirror. Now, I will also say the Dragon Age Wiki states that it's only there if Meryl's mirror is not destroyed, but this is not true. It is there no matter what. Another fun fact that this mirror that you see right here isn't the only one in this area. I found another one actually not too far away from this one. Now, it might just be a design oversight and they just wanted to make it easy when designing, so they just copied and pasted the mirrors, and it is impossible to see where the Inquisitor's standing, so they didn't think anyone would go over there, but who knows, maybe there is more than one mirror. But let's also talk about the design of Meryl's mirror, because it's unusual, to say the least. First, remember the design of the classic Eluvians. It looks like a doorway, just a simple design. Some do have extra bits on the side, like statues or mirrors, but they don't really seem to be functional, they're just kind of there. But Meryl's is much different. You couldn't even walk into it if you tried, with the branches in the way holding the mirror up. It honestly just looks like the branches kind of came out from the ground and lifted up the mirror. Another odd part is the ram on top of the mirror. While rams are very common in Thedas as we've seen, I can't think of a single significant story as to why one would be the top of these Eluvians. Perhaps it's a symbol for something, or maybe whoever did this just likes rams? I really have nothing why it has a ram on it. Another option is that Meryl made the frame herself. She wasn't able to collect all of the pieces of the Eluvian when she remade it, so it's possible that the frame is new. But if that is the case, then it doesn't make that much sense. While I think it would be reasonable to assume that once an Eluvian is altered, its partner in the Crossroads will reflect the look, there are other frames of Meryl's mirror that you can find across Dragon Age Inquisition, one of them even being in the Deep Roads in the Descent DLC. History. It's not like we have a detailed history on the Eluvians, but from what we have, this is the best that I can come up with. The Eluvians were made by the Ancient Elven to help spread their empire. There were almost no roads connecting cities. It was all dependent on Eluvians. These Eluvians would lead to various parts of Thedas and even other bubbles of structures that are in between the Fade and the real world, much like the Virdathara. This network of Eluvians would be described as a labyrinth, and it does seem that there are various networks that make up the complete whole. So during the time of the Ancient Elves, Fen'Harel and his group will lock away the Elven gods, bring up the Veil, and shut down the Eluvians around the same time, as spirits who are trapped in the Virdathara because of the Eluvian shutdown speak of not hearing from the Elven gods, and that being a new thing. From the Masked Empire, we learned that the Eluvian shutdown wasn't all simultaneous. It seemed that it happened in waves, as they found trapped skeletons that seemed to be running, looking for an exit to the surface. After that, we don't really know how long it took, but Tevinter Magisters eventually get a hold of the Eluvians and look for a way to unlock their power. As the story goes, they were only able to communicate through them and nothing more. The Eluvians scattered across Thedas then begin to either be shattered, collected by the wealthy as odd baubles, or corrupted by who knows what, and in one case, the Blight itself. We eventually jump to 930 Dragon. Two Dalish elves find an Eluvian that has been tainted by the Blight. One of them, Tamlen, reports that he can see a city underground and is something looking at him. He is then taken through it and his friend is tainted. Depending on who you play in Dragon Age Origin, his friend either dies or becomes the Warden. Either way, the Eluvian is smashed. Around 932 Dragon, Morrigan, Witch of the Wilds, is able to activate an Eluvian, which he travels through. The Warden is then able to use parts of the mirror that the Dalish clan found to scry to find Morrigan and her Eluvian. In Dragon Age 2, we learn that Meryl, a clanmate of Tamlen, gathered up most of the pieces of the broken Eluvian and tries to fix it herself by using blood magic. Through your choices, she either fixes it or destroys it. If fixed, it's still not activated. Eventually, in 940 Dragon, through a long series of events, Briala, an elven servant and lover of the Orlesian Empress Selene, is able to take control and awaken part of the Eluvian network thanks to the help of a forbidden one named Inshale. She sets a password for the Eluvians, which she makes Fen'Harel and Asal, or the Dreadwolf's Blessing. Breaking off from Selene, she uses the network to create an army of elven spies that can travel around Thedas quickly. Due to the magic of her activating the network, she's also gifted with a sense of direction in finding her way through the network. Jumping to Dragon Age Inquisition, Morrigan brings the Inquisitor through her Eluvian. The Inquisitor would later be able to use this to travel from the Arbor Wilds back to Skyhold. It's unknown what happens to this Eluvian at the end of the game, as artwork shows Morrigan leaving without it. We do not know the exact date, but Solus eventually is able to override the magic personally on Briala's network of Eluvians, cutting her off access and gaining it for himself. In 944 Dragon, we find that the Qunari have been gathering Eluvians and have opened up a separate network of Eluvians that they have been traveling through. Solus and his people stumble into the Qunari and begin to war over control over the network. The Inquisitor ends up defeating the Qunari group in control of part of this network, likely letting Solus use the Eluvians to himself. The Crossroads. Let's also take a moment to talk about the Crossroads, as we've touched on it already, and why not? So we talked about the magic we know of, but what about how they functionally work? Well, in the Masked Empire, the Crossroads very clearly preferred the elves. The humans in the group would have headaches and would complain of it being too bright. It would also slow their movements through the network compared to the elves. This is completely different from what we actually see in Dragon Age Inquisition, where the only difference between the elves and non-elves is only visual. The elven crossroads are colorful, with trees in bloom, while the non-elven crossroads are dull and lifeless. In the Masked Empire, the crossroads is talked as only a path surrounded by grass stretching out into forever with mountains in the distance, which sounds much closer to the crossroads that Morrigan takes us to, which that has no difference for elves or non-elves. In Dragon Age Inquisition, the crossroads seem to be on floating rocks in the void, with structures that seem to mirror that with on the other side of the Eluvian. Strange red eggs are also used to create paths to different Eluvians as well. So, what happened here? Why does it seem like there are two different crossroads? Well, I really have no hard facts, but as a theory, perhaps it's that this is because it's a part of two different networks. Morrigan's Eluvian and the one in Masked Empire belong to one set that Briala used to have and Solus currently controls, while the other is a part of a network that belonged to the Qunari, but also probably belongs to Solus at the moment. In short, what you should be getting from this video is that Solus currently controls all of the Eluvians, which is an extremely powerful tool. He is able to travel across Thedas at the blink of an eye much faster than anything else that we know. So a major way that we can probably hinder his ability to do anything would be take away his traveling abilities, therefore the Eluvians. And that, dear patrons, is all that we know on the mysterious mirrors. Do you still have lingering questions, proof that I'm wrong, comments about your own fan theory? Feel free to tweet me at @Gildathon on Twitter or send a PM to user Gillanon on Reddit. Dress your roll.